The fluorescent lights above buzzed with an insistent, monotonous drone, amplifying the weariness etched on the faces of shoppers hurrying through the aisles. Each face seemed to carry its own burden, a silent testament to the daily grind. Michael Chun shuffled forward in the checkout line, the weight of his 2-year-old daughter, Lily, a tangible reminder of his responsibilities. She clung to her threadbare stuffed giraffe, its button eyes staring blankly ahead. Lily had been unusually cranky all day, a telltale sign that their dwindling supply of diapers was on her mind, or at least on Michael's. He knew the reason for her fussiness, or rather, he knew the cause of his own gnawing anxiety. They were down to their last 2 diapers. Money was so tight that even this seemingly insignificant purchase felt like teetering on the edge of a financial cliff. At 32, Michael had envisioned a vastly different life. He'd been a promising architect, steadily climbing the ranks at a reputable firm, sharing his life with a loving wife and a beautiful baby daughter. Then, the unthinkable. Sarah's sudden death in a car accident when Lily was barely 6 months old. A senseless tragedy that shattered his world into a million irreparable pieces. One moment, they were a family. The next, Michael was a grieving, widowed single father, cradling a baby who instinctively cried for her mother, and burdened with a mortgage he couldn't manage on his own. He desperately tried to maintain his career, clinging to the familiar structure of his work life. But childcare costs were astronomical, a constant, crippling drain on his already depleted finances. His grief, a heavy shroud, clouded his mind, making him late, distracted, and prone to errors. His firm had been understanding at first, offering condolences and support. But empathy has its limits. 6 months ago, they delivered the crushing blow. Restructuring, they called it. Michael saw it for what it was, the final, resounding nail in the coffin of his former existence. Since then, he'd been piecing together a precarious living, scraping by on freelance drafting projects snatched up whenever he could find them, supplemented by odd handyman jobs. Anything that allowed him to stay home with Lily, to be both mother and father, while bringing in a meager income. But it was never quite enough. The bills piled up, the pantry emptied, and hope dwindled with each passing day. Now, he stood in the harsh fluorescent light of the grocery store, meticulously counting the coins in his worn leather wallet. He had exactly $12. The package of diapers cost $11. That would leave him with a paltry 48 cents to stretch until his next freelance payment trickled in 3 agonizing days from now. No formula for Lily this trip. No bread, no milk, no fruit, no vegetables, no anything else. Just diapers, because those were, quite simply, non-negotiable. The woman in front of him, seemingly oblivious to his internal turmoil, finished her transaction and moved on. Michael, bracing himself, stepped forward and placed the package of diapers on the conveyor belt. The cashier, a weary-looking woman in her late 50s with tired eyes and a name tag that read Brenda, scanned the package without making eye contact. $99, she announced in a monotone. Michael pulled out his wallet, his hands trembling slightly. A $10 bill, a $1 bill, and then the daunting task of counting out the remaining sum in loose change. He counted quarters, dimes, nickels, each coin a stark reminder of his precarious situation. He was acutely aware of the growing line forming behind him, the impatient sighs, the subtle shifts of weight. He was acutely aware of Lily squirming in his arms, her soft hair tickling his cheek. And he was acutely aware of how utterly pathetic this must look to everyone around him. A man reduced to counting pennies to buy diapers for his child. "Daddy, I need giraffe," Lily whimpered, her small hand loosening its grip. The beloved stuffed animal tumbled to the floor with a soft thud. As Michael bent to retrieve it, struggling to maintain his grip on Lily, more coins spilled from his sweating palm, scattering across the grimy linoleum. "I'm so sorry," he mumbled, his face flushing with embarrassment, as he tried to gather the scattered change with one hand while precariously balancing Lily on his hip. "Just give me a second." "Sir, there's a line?" A voice barked from behind him, laced with thinly veiled impatience. "I know. I'm sorry. I'm almost—" Michael's voice cracked, betraying his rising panic. He was on his knees now, frantically scooping up quarters from the dirty floor, the weight of Lily pressing down on him, her quiet whimpers escalating into full-blown sobs. "Here!" A woman's voice, calm and soothing, cut through the mounting tension. "Let me help." Michael looked up, his vision blurred with frustration and exhaustion. A woman was crouching beside him, her hands efficiently gathering the scattered coins. She appeared to be in her early 30s, with light brown hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She wore a cream-colored blazer that radiated understated elegance, a stark contrast to the utilitarian clothes of the other shoppers. She collected the coins with practiced ease, stood, and handed them to him with a gentle smile. "Thank you," Michael managed, finally standing up. Lily still clutched tightly in his arms. "I'm so sorry. It's been a hard day." "Don't apologize," the woman said, her eyes warm with understanding. She smiled at Lily, who had momentarily stopped crying, captivated by the unfamiliar face. "She's beautiful. How old?" "2. Her name's Lily." Michael finished counting out his change, his hands still shaking imperceptibly. 99 exactly. He handed the crumpled bills and handful of coins to the cashier, who counted it meticulously, then nodded curtly and handed him the package of diapers. As Michael turned to leave, defeated but relieved, the woman stepped forward to the register. "Excuse me," she said to Brenda the cashier. "I'd like to buy all the diapers you have. This brand, this size." Brenda looked at her, her expression a mixture of confusion and suspicion. "All of them?" "Yes, every package in that size. And please deliver them to—" She turned to Michael, her gaze searching. "I'm sorry, I didn't get your name." Michael stared at her, his mind struggling to process what was happening. Michael Chin. "But I don't understand. My name is Alexandra Cole, and I'd like to help, if you'll let me." She pulled out a sleek platinum credit card and handed it to the cashier. "How many packages do you have in stock of that size?" Brenda, still bewildered, consulted a handheld device. "Maybe 30 packages. I'll take them all." Alexandra turned back to Brenda. "And the delivery information?" Alexandra pulled out her phone. "If I could get your address." Michael felt a wave of dizziness wash over him. "I can't accept that. That's too much. I don't even know you." "You don't need to know me," Alexandra said, her voice gentle but firm. "You just need to accept help when it's offered. Your daughter needs diapers. I have the ability to provide them. It's that simple." "But why?" Michael pleaded, his voice thick with emotion. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Alexandra was quiet for a moment, her gaze softening. Then she said, "Because I've been where you are." She paused, then corrected herself. "Not exactly, but close enough. I know what it feels like to stand in a checkout line counting pennies, wondering how you're going to make it through the next day. Someone helped me once. I'm just paying it forward." By now, the store manager, alerted by Brenda's bewildered expression, had arrived and was coordinating with the cashier about inventory and delivery. Other customers in line were watching the scene unfold, some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled impatience. But Michael barely noticed them. He was completely focused on Alexandra, the stranger who had just single-handedly changed his week, maybe his month, maybe even his life. "I'll pay you back," he said, his voice earnest. "I don't know when, but I will." "I don't want you to pay me back," Alexandra insisted, smiling. "But if you insist on doing something, then pay it forward. When you're in a position to help someone else, do it." The manager approached Michael, his expression professional but kind. "Sir, if you could provide your delivery address, we'll have these sent over this afternoon." Michael, still feeling like he was caught in a surreal dream, gave his address. 30 packages of diapers. That would last Lily months. Months of not having to choose between diapers and food. Months of desperately needed breathing room. As they finalized the details, Lily, captivated by Alexandra's presence, reached out and gently touched her arm. "Pretty lady," she said, one of her favorite phrases of late. Alexandra smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners. She gently touched Lily's hand. "You're the pretty one, sweetie. Take good care of your daddy." "Okay," Lily replied solemnly. After the transaction was complete, and Michael had thanked Alexandra what felt like 100 times, she walked with him toward the exit. "Can I ask you something?" Michael said, his voice hesitant. "You mentioned you'd been where I am. What did you mean?" Alexandra paused, her expression thoughtful. "I was a single mother once, a long time ago now. My daughter's grown and married with her own kids. But when she was little, her father left us. Just walked out one day, leaving me with nothing but a baby and a mountain of debt. I was working minimum wage jobs, trying to keep us fed, housed, and clothed. I remember shopping with a calculator, meticulously adding up every item, putting things back on the shelves because I couldn't afford them." Her voice grew distant, tinged with a hint of lingering pain. "One day, at a different store, a situation very similar to today, I was short on money for groceries. An older woman, a complete stranger, paid the difference and told me to pass it on someday. I never forgot that act of kindness." "What happened?" Michael asked, genuinely curious. "How did you get from there to?" He gestured vaguely at her expensive clothes, the platinum credit card that had just effortlessly purchased hundreds of dollars worth of diapers. "I worked hard," Alexandra said simply. "I went to night school, juggling classes with childcare and work. I built a business from nothing, fueled by determination and sheer grit. And I got lucky a few times. Right place, right time, right opportunities. Now I run a consulting firm that helps small businesses grow." Alexandra pulled out a sleek business card. "That's my company. But this is my personal cell number." She flipped the card over and scribbled a number on the back. "Call me if you need anything else. Anything at all." "I can't keep taking from you," Michael protested, feeling a familiar wave of guilt wash over him. "You're not taking," Alexandra countered, her voice gentle but firm. "I'm giving freely. There's a difference." Alexandra handed him the card, her gaze unwavering. "Michael, I saw your face in that checkout line. I saw the desperation, the shame, the exhaustion. I recognized it because I lived it. Let me help, please." Over the next few weeks, Michael couldn't stop thinking about Alexandra Cole. He'd looked her up online and discovered she was even more successful than he'd imagined. Her consulting firm was worth millions, a testament to her intelligence and business acumen. She was frequently featured in business magazines, lauded for her innovative strategies and philanthropic endeavors. She sat on the boards of several charitable organizations, dedicating her time and resources to making a difference in the world. She was, by any measure, incredibly accomplished. And yet, she'd stopped to help him, a complete stranger, in a grocery store checkout line. The diapers arrived that afternoon as promised, filling his small apartment with a tangible symbol of hope. Michael stood in his living room, surrounded by boxes of diapers, a lump forming in his throat, and finally allowed himself to cry. For the first time in months, he didn't have to worry about this one crucial thing. For the first time since Sarah's death, someone had seen him struggling and offered help without judgment, without pity, without expecting anything in return. A week later, after much internal debate, he worked up the courage to call the number on Alexandra's card. "Hello, Miss Cole. This is Michael Chun from the grocery store." "Michael, I'm so glad you called," Alexandra said, her voice warm and welcoming. "How are you? How's Lily?" "We're good. Really good," Michael replied, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. "The diapers made such a difference. I just wanted to thank you again." "You're very welcome," Alexandra said, her tone sincere. "But I'm guessing you didn't just call to thank me." Michael took a deep breath, steeling himself. "You said to call if I needed anything, and I feel terrible asking, but I'm wondering, do you know anyone who needs architectural drafting work? I'm trying to build up my freelance business, but it's slow going, and I'm running out of contacts." "You're an architect?" Alexandra asked, surprised. Michael corrected. "I worked at Morrison & Associates until about 6 months ago. Now I'm freelancing while I figure out my next steps." "Send me your portfolio," Alexandra instructed. "Email it to me today." I know several companies that need architectural services. Michael emailed his portfolio that afternoon, managing his expectations, hoping for maybe a recommendation or a contact name, but bracing himself for disappointment. Instead, Alexandra called him 2 days later with an offer that took his breath away. "I have a friend who runs a residential development company," she said, her voice brisk and professional. "He needs someone to do drafting and design work for a new project. 30 houses, flexible hours, can be done remotely. He's willing to pay $5,000 per house." Michael's heart leaped in his chest. That's $150,000 for the full project. He nearly dropped his phone in disbelief. "It's market rate," Alexandra assured him. "You're qualified. Your portfolio is excellent. This isn't charity, Michael. This is business." I don't know what to say," Michael stammered, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the opportunity. "Say you'll take the job and do good work," Alexandra said, her tone firm but encouraging. "That's all." Michael took the job. The work was challenging, demanding creativity and precision, but it was also deeply fulfilling, the kind of design he'd always loved. And for the first time in over a year, he wasn't constantly stressed about money. He could buy groceries without calculating every penny, without sacrificing nutrition for affordability. He could replace Lily's worn-out shoes without feeling a pang of guilt. He could breathe again. 3 months into the project, Alexandra invited him and Lily to lunch. They met at a small, cozy cafe, and Lily was immediately fascinated by Alexandra, chattering incessantly about her giraffe, her new shoes, and everything else that occupied her toddler universe. "She's delightful," Alexandra said, smiling warmly at Lily. "You're doing an amazing job with her, Michael." "I'm trying," Michael admitted, his voice tinged with weariness. "Some days are better than others." "That's parenting in a nutshell," Alexandra said knowingly. She paused, her expression softening. "Can I ask you something personal? What happened to Lily's mother?" Michael felt the familiar ache in his chest, the lingering pain of his loss. "Car accident. When Lily was 6 months old. Drunk driver ran a red light. Sarah died instantly." "I'm so sorry," Alexandra said, her voice filled with genuine sympathy. "Me too," Michael whispered. "Every single day." He watched Lily color intently on her kid's menu, her brow furrowed in concentration. "The worst part is that Lily won't remember her. She was too young. So, I try to tell her stories about Sarah, show her pictures, keep her mother alive somehow. But it's hard." "You're doing everything right," Alexandra assured him. "Trust me, my daughter doesn't remember much about her father either, and she turned out just fine. Better than fine." Alexandra's voice grew softer, filled with a quiet understanding. "The fact that you're trying so hard, that you care so much, that matters more than you know." They talked for 2 hours, sharing their experiences, their struggles, their hopes. They talked about parenting and loss and recovery, about building a life after tragedy, about the constant challenge of balancing work and single parenthood. And Michael realized, with a sense of surprise, that he was enjoying himself, truly enjoying himself, for the first time in longer than he could remember. As they prepared to leave, Alexandra turned to Michael, her gaze direct and sincere. "I'd like to see you again, if you're interested. Not as a charity case or someone I'm helping," she clarified. "As friends. Or maybe," she hesitated, a hint of vulnerability in her eyes, "maybe more than friends eventually, if that's something you'd consider." Michael looked at her, truly seeing her for the first time. This woman who had been so kind, so generous, so understanding. This woman who had seen him at his lowest and offered him a lifeline. "I'd like that very much," he said, his voice filled with a newfound hope. "But I need to go slow. It's been less than 2 years since Sarah died, and I'm still healing." "Slow is perfect," Alexandra said, her smile reassuring. "I've learned that the best things take time." And they did go slow. Coffee dates while Lily napped at Alexandra's house, carefully arranged with the help of a trusted babysitter. Dinners after Lily was asleep, meticulously planned around their demanding schedules. Walks in the park with Lily between them, holding both their hands, forging a tentative connection, a fragile hope for the future. Alexandra never pushed, never demanded more than Michael could give. She understood that grief didn't follow a strict timeline, that healing happened in fits and starts, that trust was built brick by brick. And slowly, carefully, Michael found himself falling in love again. Not the same way he'd loved Sarah. That love would always be unique and precious and untouchable. A sacred memory etched in his heart. But a new kind of love, built on mutual respect, genuine affection, and a shared understanding of what it meant to survive hard things, to emerge from the darkness stronger and more resilient. A year after that fateful day in the grocery store checkout line, Michael asked Alexandra to marry him. They were in that same store, in that same aisle, though this time they weren't buying diapers. Lily was 3 now, fully potty trained and fiercely proud of her accomplishment. "I want to ask you something," Michael said, his voice trembling with emotion. He knelt down in the middle of the diaper aisle, oblivious to the curious stares of the other shoppers navigating around him. "Alexandra Cole, will you marry me?" Alexandra's eyes filled with tears, and she started laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed by the emotion of the moment. "You're proposing in a grocery store?" she asked, her voice choked with emotion. "I'm proposing in the place where you saved my life," Michael said, his gaze unwavering. It seemed appropriate. He pulled out a ring, a simple but elegant diamond solitaire. Nothing as fancy as Alexandra could probably afford herself, but something he'd saved for and chosen carefully, a symbol of his love and commitment. "You saw me at my lowest point, and you didn't look away. You helped me. You believed in me. You loved me. I want to spend the rest of my life doing the same for you." "Yes?" Alexandra whispered, her voice thick with tears. Of course, yes. They were married 6 months later in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by family and friends. Lily was the flower girl, taking her job very seriously, scattering rose petals with meticulous precision. Alexandra's grown daughter was the maid of honor, and when they exchanged vows, both of them acknowledged that sometimes the worst moments in life can lead to the most beautiful outcomes, that tragedy can pave the way for unexpected blessings. "I was counting pennies in a checkout line," Michael said during his vows, his voice breaking with emotion. "Broken and desperate and certain I'd never be happy again. And you appeared like an angel and reminded me that good people still exist, that kindness still matters, that tomorrow could be better than today. I was successful, but lonely," Alexandra said during her vows, her voice filled with warmth and sincerity. "Accomplished but missing something I couldn't quite name. And then I saw you struggling and recognized my younger self. Helping you reminded me why I'd worked so hard to succeed. Not for the money or the status, but for the ability to make a difference, to help people who need it. You gave my success meaning." Years later, when they told the story of how they met, they'd always come back to that grocery store checkout line, to the moment when Michael had been at his absolute lowest, counting pennies for diapers, and Alexandra had stepped up to help, offering a lifeline of hope and compassion. "I was counting change," Michael would say, shaking his head in disbelief. "And I was counting my blessings," Alexandra would add, her eyes sparkling with love. "Because I'd reached a point in my life where I could help, where I could be the person I'd needed when I was struggling." They'd established a foundation together, funded by their success and driven by their shared experience. One that helped single parents with emergency needs. Rent assistance, groceries, childcare, medical bills. All the things that could break someone who was already barely hanging on. "Everyone needs help sometimes," Alexandra would tell the people they assisted, her voice filled with empathy. "There's no shame in that. The only shame is in looking away when someone needs you." Michael had been counting his last dollar in a grocery store, desperate and exhausted, when a stranger had said, "I'll take them all." Those 4 simple words had changed everything. Not just providing diapers, but providing hope, providing the reminder that he wasn't alone, that someone saw him and cared. Sometimes salvation comes in unexpected forms, in the kindness of a stranger, in the generosity of a compassionate heart. Sometimes it wears an expensive blazer and shops at the same grocery store. Sometimes it says yes when everyone else has said no. Michael had been broke, desperate, and out of options. Alexandra had been successful, generous, and looking for meaning. And in a grocery store checkout line, amidst the hum of fluorescent lights and the clatter of groceries, they'd found each other. He'd been counting his last dollar. She'd made sure it wasn't his last chance. And that made all the difference.